The weak species in the back row. The Galactic Academy of Cooperative Sciences prided itself on order. Every desk was perfectly aligned. Every species seated according to metabolic comfort, atmospheric preference, and cultural hierarchy. The lecture hall shimmered with soft holographic light, data panels hovering in quiet readiness behind the professor's podium. This was where the galaxy's future diplomats, scientists, and survival theorists were trained. Far from danger, far from hardship, and, according to most present, far from humans. Evan Carter sat in the back row. He was smaller than nearly everyone else in the room. No carapace, no natural armor, no claws, fangs, venom sacs, or secondary limbs. Just a thin frame wrapped in an Academy-issued gray uniform, hands folded loosely on the desk in front of him. His breathing was steady, his posture relaxed, which only made him look worse. A pair of Velthary students, tall, teal-skinned beings with ridged cranial plates, glanced back at him and exchanged a low-frequency click of amusement. A human, one murmured. From a Class 4 world. Fragile species, the other replied. Low-gravity adaptation. Minimal environmental hazards. Why would they waste a seat? Evan heard them. Humans always heard more than people expected. He didn't respond. At the front of the hall, Professor Threxel activated the main display. The old survival theorist was massive even by galactic standards, his segmented form supported by a reinforced grav platform. His species had evolved on a world of gentle seasons and abundant resources. Survivors, yes, but survivors of comfort. Today's session, Threxel announced, will focus on comparative planetary survival baselines. The hologram shifted, displaying a rotating sphere bathed in soft blues and greens. Most sentient species, Threxel continued, originate from worlds optimized by evolutionary equilibrium. Stable climates, predictable ecosystems, limited catastrophic variance. Several students nodded. This was familiar ground. We classify such environments, he said, as baseline survival worlds. Survival is expected. Death is anomalous. Evan leaned back slightly in his chair. Threxel's multifaceted eyes scanned the room. To begin, we will conduct a simple exercise. Each of you will briefly describe the daily survival challenges of your homeworld. A Murian student went first, describing mild seasonal shifts and state-regulated predator populations. Applause followed. A Kesh diplomat candidate spoke next. Nutrient-rich soil, non-hostile flora, weather events announced weeks in advance. More approval. Each presentation followed the same pattern. Controlled environments. Managed risks. Survival as a solved problem. When Threxel reached the middle rows, his gaze finally settled on the lone human in the back. Student Carter, he said, voice echoing softly. Earth, you may proceed. A ripple of quiet laughter passed through the hall. Evan paused and stood. He didn't activate the hologram right away. He didn't gesture dramatically or raise his voice. He simply looked around the room, at the armored bodies, the adaptive skins, the beings evolved to avoid hardship. Earth doesn't really have safe days, he said calmly. Just days where nothing goes wrong. The laughter stopped. Professor Threxel tilted his head. Clarify. Evan nodded once. On most worlds represented here, survival is the default state. On Earth, survival is conditional. A few students shifted uncomfortably. Our planet isn't optimized, Evan continued. It's active, dynamic. It changes constantly, whether we want it to or not. Threxel's claws tapped lightly against the podium. All worlds experience change. Yes, sir, Evan agreed. But on Earth, the change doesn't ask permission. He activated his display. The hologram flared to life, Earth rotating slowly. Beautiful. Blue. Alive. Baseline conditions, Evans said. Gravity higher than galactic average. Enough to strain joints and organs over time. Atmospheric oxygen levels high enough to accelerate corrosion, combustion, and cellular damage. A low murmur spread through the room. Our weather, Evan went on, is unmanaged. Storms form without warning. Heat waves kill. Cold snaps kill. Sometimes both happen in the same year. sometimes in the same region. Threxel frowned. Your planetary council does not regulate. We don't have one, Evans said. The planet doesn't listen. The display shifted. Images of rotating storm systems, swirling clouds large enough to swallow continents. These are hurricanes, Evan explained. They move oceans, tear cities apart. We evacuate if we can. If not, we rebuild. Several alien students stared, transfixed. And that's considered normal, one whispered. Evan glanced toward the voice. Normal enough that we have procedures. Professor Threxel straightened. Student Carter, this exercise is meant to be introductory. You are describing extreme anomalies. Evan met his gaze without challenge. Respectfully, sir, those are just the easy examples. The room went very quiet. Threxel hesitated, then made a slow, deliberate gesture. Continue. Evan nodded. That's just the planet, he said. I haven't even started on the life yet. Somewhere in the back row, an alien student quietly closed their data slate. And for the first time since the humans sat down among them, no one laughed. A planet that actively tries to kill you. The silence in the lecture hall lingered longer than protocol allowed. Professor Threxel studied the human student with a mixture of skepticism and something dangerously close to concern. Student Carter, he said at last, you may proceed, but ensure your claims are supported by verifiable data. Evan inclined his head. Of course, sir. With a subtle motion, he expanded the hologram. Earth's image zoomed in, layers unfolding. Atmosphere, ocean's crust mantle. The planet no longer looked serene. It looked restless. Let's talk about instability, Evan began. Most inhabited worlds have static crusts or minimal tectonic movement. Earth doesn't. The display shifted. Jagged fault lines lit up across continents like glowing scars. Our planet's surface is broken into massive plates, Evans said. They move constantly, slowly most of the time, sometimes not. A sharp animation followed, two plates grinding, pressure building, then releasing in a violent snap. Earthquakes, Evan explained. Cities can collapse in under a minute. Entire regions destabilized without warning. A Khazari student raised a trembling appendage. You evacuate beforehand. Evan shook his head. We can't predict them accurately. The appendage lowered in disbelief. And when the crust fails completely, Evan continued, we get volcanic eruptions. The hologram erupted, plumes of ash piercing the atmosphere, rivers of molten rock consuming everything in their path. These events release enough energy to alter climate patterns, Evans said. They poison air, destroy agriculture, and sometimes darken the sky for years. Professor Threxel's mandibles clicked uneasily. Your species persists on this world willingly? It's our home, Evan replied simply. He rotated the globe again. The oceans came into focus. 70% of Earth is water, he said. That might sound like abundance. It isn't. The display darkened, storms forming over vast blue expanses. Our oceans generate storms powerful enough to be seen from orbit, Evans said. Wind speeds exceeding survival thresholds for most known species. Waves tall enough to swallow structures designed to withstand artillery fire. A murmur rippled through the hall. And those storms move, Evan added. They don't stay in one place. They make landfall. He paused, then added, we name them, because we see them coming again. Threxel raised a claw. Student Carter, why would your civilization settle in regions subject to such recurring devastation? Evan considered the question. Because those regions are still better than some of the alternatives. The hologram shifted again, deserts. Endless dunes under a burning sun. Heat, Evans said. Temperatures that can kill in hours without protection. No surface water. Minimal shelter. The image flipped, frozen wastelands. White, endless, lethal. And cold, he continued. Exposure kills. Equipment fails. Even the ground becomes a hazard. A Murian student whispered, why not abandon these zones? Evan glanced toward them. People live there. That answer settled like a weight. Professor Threxel folded his upper limbs. These conditions are extreme, yet you speak of them as routine. Because they are, Evan replied. We build for them, prepare for them. Sometimes we still lose. He pulled up a timeline. Earth's history is marked by mass extinction events, Evans said. Natural, repeated, life-ending on a planetary scale. The display showed plunging temperature graphs, rising radiation levels, asteroid impacts. Most species here, Evan went on, exist because your world stabilized early. Earth never did. A student near the front leaned back, eyes wide. Your planet survived that. Yes, Evan said, and so did we. Threxel interrupted, his voice sharper now. Student Carter, survival on such a world would require constant external intervention. Evan shook his head. No, sir. It requires adaptation. He switched displays again. Human cities rising along fault lines, coastal megastructures, infrastructure reinforced and rebuilt time and time again. We don't stop disasters, Evans said. We plan for them. We train children for them. We rehearse what to do when the ground shakes or the sky turns black. The hall was utterly silent. These drills, Evan continued, are not signs of panic. They're routine. A pause. On Earth, he finished, the environment is not a backdrop. It's an active participant. Professor Threxel stared at the hologram, then back at the human. You describe a world where survival is never guaranteed. Evan nodded once. That's why we call it daily. He deactivated the display. And that, he said quietly, is just the planet. No one asked him to stop. Everything has teeth. Evan let the hologram fade to black before speaking again. Now, he said, we can talk about the life. No one laughed. No one shifted impatiently. The class sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on the human as if sudden movement might invite danger. Professor Threxel broke the silence. Proceed. Evan brought the display back. This time not a planet, but a branching web of images. Creatures. Countless forms, sizes, anatomies. Some beautiful, some unmistakably lethal. On Earth, Evan began, nearly every organism is in competition with something else. Food, territory, mates, space. The first image enlarged, a massive predator with forward-facing eyes and exposed fangs. Apex predators, Evans said. Fast, strong, equipped with natural weapons. Some hunt alone. Many hunt in packs. He shifted the display. Another predator, this one smaller, leaner. Endurance hunters, Evan continued. They don't need to be faster. They just need to keep coming. Several alien students stiffened. These animals pursue prey until it collapses from exhaustion, Evan explained. Overheat, cardiac failure, stress-induced shock. A Khazari student swallowed visibly. That is considered a valid hunting strategy? Yes, Evans said. It works. He changed the image again. Bright colors. Small creatures. Innocent looking. Not everything dangerous looks threatening, Evans said. Some animals use venom. Neurotoxins. Hemotoxins. A data overlay appeared. Molecular diagrams. Some can kill in minutes, Evan added. Others take hours. Days. So don't kill at all. Just paralyze, infect, or weaken. The alien medical students leaned forward, horrified and fascinated. And then, Evans said, they're the things you never see. The hologram zoomed further, microscopic imagery. Swarms of shapes, alien even by galactic standards. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, Evans said. They live everywhere. Inside us, on us, around us. Professor Threxel frowned deeply. Your species allows these organisms to persist. Evan nodded. We can't get rid of them. And most of the time, we don't want to. A stunned silence followed. These microorganisms, Evan continued, have killed more humans than every predator combined. They evolve rapidly. Adapt. Learn. A Mirian student whispered. Then how are you alive? Evan smiled faintly. Our immune systems. He brought up a schematic of the human body. Layers of defenses, responses firing in cascading chains. Our bodies are constantly at war, Evans said. Every day, every moment, even when we sleep. That concept alone unsettled the room. But here's the important part, Evans said, shifting the display again. The predators faded. The microbes faded. What remained was a simple silhouette of a human. "We are not the apex predators of our world," Evans said. "We never were." Confusion rippled through the hall. "We are slow," Evan continued. "Physically fragile. Individually weak." Several students nodded. This part, at least, matched their expectations. "But we endure." The display changed. Humans moving together. Groups. Tools. Fire. "Our advantage is persistence," Evans said. "We recover. We adapt. We learn patterns." He showed early humans tracking animals across vast distances. "We don't outfight most predators," Evans said. "We outlast them." Professor Threxel leaned forward. "And when endurance is not enough?" Evan didn't hesitate. "We innovate." The hologram showed progression: stone tools, metal, engines, medicine. "We change our environment faster than it can change us," Evans said. "That's how we survive." A student near the front raised a tentative limb. "Student Carter, how many hostile species exist on your world?" Evan considered the question carefully. "All of them," he said, "under the right conditions." That answer drew a collective breath from the room. "So you see," Evan continued, voice steady, "Earth doesn't have a clear line between danger and safety. Everything can become a threat. Weather, animals, microbes, even other humans." Threxel's voice was quiet now. "And yet your species persists." Evan nodded. "Because we had to." He shut down the display. "Survival on Earth isn't about being the strongest," Evan said. "It's about refusing to stop." No one spoke for several long seconds. Then a Velthary student, voice unsteady, asked the question forming in every mind. "How did your species survive long enough to reach the stars?" Evan met their gaze. "We didn't have a choice," he said. And for the first time, the class understood that the human wasn't brave. He was normal, the species that calls this normal. The lecture hall felt smaller now. Not physically, its dimensions had not changed, but perceptually, as if the presence of a human had subtly altered the space around him. Evan Carter stood quietly at the back, hands resting at his sides, waiting. He had finished speaking, yet no one seemed ready to move on. Professor Threxel broke the silence. "Student Carter," he said slowly, "you have described an environment of constant threat, an ecosystem defined by violence, instability, and relentless adaptation." "Yes, sir," Evan replied. "Then explain," Threxel continued, "how your species functions psychologically. Survival under such conditions should produce chaos, collapse, madness." Evan considered that. Then he activated the display one final time. This time it showed cities, vast human settlements, dense, sprawling, alive. Roads, towers, lights stretching beyond the horizon. "This is how," Evans said. He zoomed in. Emergency services in motion. Hospitals, power grids, construction crews repairing damaged infrastructure. "Humans don't survive alone," Evans said. "We never did." He highlighted networks, communication, logistics, medicine. "When disasters happen," he continued, "we don't wait for stability. We respond inside the instability." The display shifted to scenes of people helping one another amid wreckage. "We build redundancies," Evans said. "If one system fails, another takes over. If that fails, we improvise." A student whispered, "This level of coordination, it would require constant stress." "It does," Evans said. "So we adapted to that too." He pulled up a new data set, human neural responses. "Our species has an unusually high tolerance for sustained stress," Evan explained. "We normalize risk, compartmentalize fear." The hall watched in stunned silence as neurological markers appeared, elevated cortisol baselines, adaptive emotional regulation. "And when that isn't enough," Evan added, "we joke." That drew several confused looks. "Humor," Evans said, "is how we process danger without freezing. We laugh at things that should terrify us." Professor Threxel's eyes widened slightly. "You make light of existential threats?" "Yes," Evans said, "because they're familiar." The display changed again. Human conflict, war, scarcity, competition. "Our greatest danger," Evans said quietly, "was never the planet." The room stiffened. "It was us," Evan continued. Limited resources, tribal instincts, fear. He showed timelines of conflict, then overlaid advancements, medicine, technology, diplomacy. Pressure forced progress, Evans said. Every crisis taught us something. Every failure cost lives, but also knowledge. Threxel stared at the data, mandibles tight. Your species evolved under constant internal and external threat. Yes, sir. And instead of collapsing, we adapted, Evans said. The professor turned toward the central console. His limbs moved deliberately as he accessed the Academy's classification system. The room watched as Earth's profile filled the main display. Earth, Class 4 Fragile World. Threxel hesitated, then made a change. The classification flickered. Earth, Deathworld. A collective intake of breath swept through the hall. No. Threxel corrected himself, adjusting parameters rapidly. That designation is insufficient. He overrode the system. Earth, active Deathworld, persistence type. Then, beneath it, native sentient species, extreme adaptive survivors. The room was silent. Professor Threxel turned back to Evan. Your species did not conquer its world. No, Evan agreed. It endured it, Threxel finished. Evan nodded once. You refer to these conditions as daily, Threxel said, voice heavy with realization. Yes, sir. The professor dismissed the class. No one moved. Eventually, students began to gather their belongings, slowly, cautiously. Conversations were hushed. Seats shifted subtly away from the back row. Evan returned to his desk and sat down. No one stared openly now. No one whispered. They simply watched. This human who had described hurricanes, predators, microbes, and war with the same calm tone others used to discuss mild weather fluctuations. As Evan packed his bag, a Velthry student hesitated nearby. Student Carter, they said carefully, are humans afraid? Evan paused, then smiled faintly. Of course, he said. All the time. Then how do you function? Evan slung the bag over his shoulder. Because, he said, most days, nothing goes wrong. He walked out of the lecture hall, leaving behind a room full of species who finally understood something terrifying. Humans weren't fearless. They were just used to surviving. And to them, this was just Tuesday.